Obuyo bito. Okute tebite ne waga. Owese ne gbo kan. Wese baba na do sima koko wana dene na. Mane money ye ni do na te GBD ya nwangbe mana do segbe koko wa. Ohia ya wewe ma wana gbo. Awonye so no magba no roto keke eni mamudi ayi ni ma metin o. Baba ma se wana ne owen ma ya de geri ma ho fo. Ma de wi ma be ama. Ma so wa ma ye be ahia. Ke ma ta wana de ne na baba no gera no amuse. Ma ni ye do ma gbegbe ma gwa ni ma ho. Na kugbe no ye no ka wi no kaka bodo aro sayo. Baba na mi wi ma ke wana pa ekumo ewuro na ro ma dori enu. Ma na ma no ni ka o. Baba to pe.
Press statement delivered by Imam Amuwe Zodowa, the Coordinator General Great Benin Descendants worldwide, on November 3rd, 2018. Good morning to all the pressmen seated here for the first inaugural press conference of this association since its inception over a year now. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen from the academia, civil society, and from all walks of life, I say welcome most sincerely. First, before we officially unveil the essence of this press conference, permit me to introduce this group to you all appropriately. We all seated here must have been aware of the imperial exploit of Great Benin Kingdom under the sole mind and leadership of the Oba of Benin, who before the unfortunate pre-planned episode of the British expedition in the year 1897 was an independent country of its own. Before our sovereignty was lost, the status of a country lasted for about 1,900 years, starting from the first recorded king of Benin, Ogiso Igodo, in the year 40 BCE, to the last independent king of Benin, Obaovora Menogbaisi. In spite of that unfortunate episode, the Benins have continually maintained the status of being great people, even in the midst of tribes who ordinarily were no match for us before our independence was forcefully taken away by the British and bestowed on those who once dreaded our might. The act of expansion of our kingdom started in the era of Ogiso Odolige, remembered to be the first warrior king of Benin. 5 centuries later, Obaiwai I redefined the whole concept of imperialist approach and further expanded the kingdom into an empire. The Benin kings are remembered to be landed warriors, not until the reign of Oba Orogboa, trained in the maritime school as well as a Catholic priest in Lisbon, brought a whole new idea of expanding his empire through the waterways, conquering and establishing many towns along the transatlantic line of Nigeria, now called Bight of Benin. Some of these communities were conquered, while some were founded along this successful venture of Oba Orogboa. Most prominent amongst these towns owned by the Benins is Eko, which the Portuguese called Lagos. It is our ancestors who founded and named that land and was never conquered. And as such, the ownership of Lagos is never in dispute, only misconstrued. In few months' time, it shall be reviewed. The concept of a larger empire like the Benin has its own deficiency of losing some of its aborigines to other places within and outside the territory of the empire. The acts that saw different modern ethnic nationalities who are of Benin origin scattered to different parts of present-day West Africa, most especially southern part of Nigeria. It is in the knowledge of getting to know that about 1/10 of the entire ethnic nationalities in Nigeria are of the same ancestry with the Benins of the present-day Edo people. that led to the creation of this group in prospect of having a common ground to unite all great Benin descendants all over the world. Since the inception of this group, we have identified over 36 ethnic nationalities or clans who have enthusiastically traced their roots to Benin. For purpose of time, we will hurriedly mention few of them. Esans, Esako, Owan, Ekbeye, Ogba, Epe Atise, Iwunroha, nicknamed as Ikweri, Ogbia, Igede, Ikare Ekiti, Aborigines of Eko, Aborigines of Itagbolu, Eze Chimen descendants of the Western Niger Delta / the Onitsha people, Oguta, Urobo, Isoko, parts of Ishekiri people, Degema, Benin people in Benin Republic, or appropriately to us, Benin Republic, Togo, Ghana, and as far as Guinea, amongst several others. It is in this knowledge that we are pained of the injustice done to us by the British, and we were the last true resistance to their plans. Without our defeat, Nigeria as a country wouldn't have existed by 1914. GBD is a forum, therefore, for uniting the descendants of this great empire. Having briefly established the mandate of our group, we cannot proceed to the business of today. We have followed the agitation of the independent people of Biafra, IPOB, under the leadership of Nnamdi Kanu, and we have no cause to be against the agitation, neither to be in support of, as we believe that every ethnic group has a right to pursue their independence. However, we completely frown at the statement credited to Nnamdi Kanu about a week ago that South region of Nigeria is part of Biafra. The statement is an aberration to both pre- and post-colonial history of Nigeria. We wish to ask, at what point in history did Igbos own South region? Is it in the days of the imperial exploits of the great Benins, or during the time the British amalgamated them and gave them a name and an identity as a people? History easily remembers that the term Biafra is a borrowed word of a Portuguese colony in the present-day Cameroon, and a supposed seceding nation will have to borrow a name that is foreign to them. We do sincerely hope that Nnamdi Kanu should be properly lectured about the history of the pre-colonial era of Nigeria. It should be taught how the Benin and its descendants controlled this whole region of South-South, part of Southeast and Southwest, and that it took the British to cut off our power and gave it to some selected few, of which the Igbos are the biggest beneficiary. Otherwise, people like Nnamdi Kanu would not have had the effrontery to place all these older ethnic groups who have been in these places for more than 5,000 years under the wings of a group that is purportedly claiming to have come from Israel about 2,000 years ago. Hence, we wish to warn the IPOB group and their supposed plan that no inch of South-South vast and rich land is by any standard of intellectual and historical argument theirs, and we will not hesitate to engage in an intellectual debate on this said matter at their convenient date, time, and venue, as we are a non-violent group who believe in the principle of intellectual engagement. Business of the day, second business of the day. We wish to announce to the whole world that the Oba of Benin is a king like no other, and as such, he deserves a place in our hearts at all times. In Benin, it is a common saying that Oba or Edo, Edo or Oba, translated as Oba symbolizes the Edo people, and the Edo people symbolize the Oba. It is a two-way phenomenon, like the concept of two sides of a coin. The Benin king and his people goes beyond mere bond, but shedded in the midst of history. And as such, the lucid, inseparable fellowship of oneness, like the theological concept of Trinity. For the purpose of this conference, let me refresh our minds a bit historically. The Benin Kingdom is the oldest surviving kingdom in Africa and second in the world, spanning a period of 2,055 years since the first king of Benin in 40 BC. 31 Ogizos reigning in a period of 854 years with a joint interregnum of 355 years, and 40 Obas of Benin reigning in a period of 846 years and counting, which amounts to 71 kings sitting on the revered throne of Benin. We were the very first known civilization in this part of the world that confounded the earliest Europeans with amazing scientific breakthroughs in the field of metallurgy, developing complex societies of impeccable organized traditional and political system, inventing the first family identity technology using natural creativity of morning salutation, an advanced national identity concept of the Iwu burden marking, a precise architectural pattern of a geometric calculated system, creating a defense around the capital through the construction of the Great Benin Wall, recorded to be the greatest archaeological feat in the world before the mechanical era, Guinness Book of Record 1986. Inventing street lighting, running a banking system about 700 years before the Europeans came to this part of the world, using bronze casting and ivory carving as an imagery to pass our history to future generations, likened to modern day libraries. These are few amongst thousands, and the very essence of this whole magnificent civilized people borders around their king, the Oba of Benin. Centering our thoughts around these awesome accomplishments, it is only wise to at all times show great respect to our revered monarch, which inherently is to ourselves. We plead to all private and governmental institutions in Benin-owned territory within and outside the modern scope of Benin Kingdom for a portrait of the Oba of Benin to be hung on the wall and as well in our private homes. This is not a must, but a show of solidarity to the greatest kingdom in the world. Oba Gatokbe. Business 3 of the day. In the past 1 year, we have patiently watched our neighbors who we accommodated as tenants long time ago in our lands because of our high level of hospitality, which has later turned against us. They vilify us and our revered Oba, and we have maintained so much decorum. And we have been threatened in our lands by those who have no historical nor legal claim to any parts of Edo land. We wish to notify this set of misguided Ijaw people that no single man has a monopoly of violence. And for the fact that we are non-violent, that is why we are mild in our response to them, as other Benin group will react at the appropriate time. However, we might have abandoned our way of violence after the unfortunate episode of the year 1897, but we have not lost it. Maybe a little refreshing of the minds of these modern Ijaw youths in our lands should be appropriately done by the elders about who the Benin people were and still are. Certainly, it could make them have a rethink of not waking up a sleeping lion. The last essence for this press conference is, in the past few weeks, we have watched a few of our Benin people in disdain of their unguided statement to the revered monarch of Benin. And as such, we wish to alert them that they should desist from such uncommon practice in our lands. And we wish to notify them that there are avenues of channeling their pains to His Royal Majesty in a more coordinated manner. Consequently, GBD will no longer tolerate any person seen using social media as a tool of committing abomination against the Edo traditions, as we are sworn to uphold the very socio-cultural values that bind our people. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, the modern Benin people is in shadow of its former exalted self, and every passing day we drown in the guilt of not realizing how long we have played second fiddle to other neighboring ethnic groups. We have mourned enough of what happened to us about 120 years ago. We must dust ourselves up and begin to start seeing the possibility of walking on the paths of our heroic ancestors. Great Benin and its descendants are too great to have been shelled in the cocoon of unprecedented obscurity. We must rise up and take our place in the present affair of the country and the world, a place where we truly deserve. And we cannot do it by being divided, hence a need to come together as one and equal people. The great Benin descendants must unite as one indefensible entity, and together we shall return back our lost glory, which is the cardinal focus of GBD, uniting all great Benin descendants all over the world as a tool to take our rightful place in the affairs of the world. At this point, ladies and gentlemen, it is no longer a coincidence nor a mere choice, but a right of a 573 years old prophecy that we will lead the next intellectual revolution that puts Benin back in the world atlas by the power of God and our ancestors. God bless great Benin people all over the world. God bless our nation that will be reborn. God bless our revered monarch. Obaga Tokbe.
You talked about the desire to have the portrait of Omonoba adorning private residences and offices of Benin people. Is there any central point where they can buy this portrait? Because these portraits are not just easy to come by. I mean, good quality. You understand what I'm saying? Is there any place that people will go to get any of such things? Thank you.
I write for Spy News Online at the Revolution Times newspaper. You made mention of the Ijaw people in your address, and the confrontation of the Ijaw people against the Benin, also to say between the Benin and the Ijaws, has been a recurrence decimal. And we do know that when violence becomes violence, of course, the end result is very, very unpleasant. So the Benin, I don't know how you are going to curtail this, because I read recently where a group, the Ijaw group, a youth group, said that they are not ceding any part of their land to anybody, especially the Benins. For me, I think this is a very complex and technical issue. How are you going to effectively deal with this? That is one. Then the other one, the Kanu issue. For me, I am shocked that it is not the Benins are waking up to this, because since the agitation for Biafra began some years back, we do know that they've come up with, I think, a map whereby the Benin area, or the south, so to say, you just mentioned, is captured, boldly captured in that map. So I'm shocked that is it that the Benin's are just realizing that they've since been captured in the map of the Biafra. And if you are just realizing that, how effectively do you think you are going to be able to curtail the caution of the Biafra into the south?
For the first question from Mr. Akubowa, the central point that whoever wants to get the portrait of Omonoba to adore, whether they're private homes or institutions, they can get his number 18, Exotic Street, this particular venue, Institute for Benin Studies, back of the Oba Palace. We'll start making the portraits available in the next few days. So whoever wants to get it should come here and get that portrait. Now, on the Ijaw crisis, ladies and gentlemen, we understood that it was a lingering crisis for a very long time. And for the information that we have, that is why in the statement we made that historically these people have no bearing ownership of this land for two reasons. Historically, there were no Ijaws in any part of Edo lands. Historically, there were fishermen, migrants who were looking, we call it the swampy people who were looking for where to get fishes to kill. So that is how they got to some part of our Benin lands or Edo lands. And secondly, this case was the Benins, after some agitations in the late 70s, the Benins took the Ijaw to the court and we defeated them. They took the Benins to appeal. The Benins defeated them and the court case went to the Supreme and we defeated them as well. So one wonders, historically they don't have any claim to any inch of Edo land, and legally they don't have any claim to any parts of Edo land. So on the issues of violence, well, it's not something we can't talk about because, of course, we read it very clearly that this group, Association of Great Benin Descendants, is a non-violent group. On issues of intellectual engagement with the Ijaw on this subject matter, they can fix their convenient time, dates, and venue. We'll meet them there. But on the issue of violence, they should be rest assured that a group of other Benins, we surely will reply them. On Nnamdi Kanu, yes, it's true that for 120 years, after we lost our sovereignty to the British in 1897, quite an unfortunate episode for the Benin people. We lost our ways. In short, we completely slept off. That consciousness of being Benin people wasn't there anymore. So, and that is why this issue has lingered. That, in short, it's not only Biafra that has carved Edo into their map. Even the Oduduwa people also carved us into their map. And we've been able to. We have established that fact that, well, if Yoruba is to carve any of the Edo lands, it shouldn't be Oduduwa. The Benins cannot be Oduduwa as a country. The reason is because Oduduwa was a prince in Benin as a Kaladeran, and it was like the half point of our history. That was in about 10th century. The Benin's history started around 40 BC, the first king. So at the part of the time, the Benin had 31 kings. The Yorubas had no king. So now, the midpoint of our history is the starting point of their history. So they can't beget us. It is the other way around. And that is, and of course, it is actually issue of ethnic rascality. Nnamdi Kanu not being properly lectured of the history, or guided on prehistory of Nigeria. Otherwise, Nnamdi Kanu should know that even the southeast, where we now refer as the Igbo land, is not even totally theirs. No. We have our people, Enugu, Ezike, Oguta, Onitsha, that have identified with their people. Now, how do we curtail Nnamdi Kanu's and the IPOB rascality? Simple. We have identified all our people. We just have to put the consciousness into their minds that they are Benin people, and that naturally kills Biafra agitation. So GBD was naturally prophesied to kill every agitation, whether Aduduwa or Biafra. So that's not an issue, ladies and gentlemen.
Wherever you are, whatever country you are now, to come back to us and we'll begin to do one thing. The membership is open to all. Once you agree that you are from Benin, you are a Benin man, you are entitled to be a member. We don't drag people. Yes. By the time you come in, we interview you and we agree with you that you come from Benin. You'll be one of us. Yeah. So both male and female. My name is Ekon Chief Priest.
It's an inborn message from God. God can never be wrong. In his infinite wisdom, he has created every human being on a particular spot on planet Earth. Therefore, anyone that belittles his ancestry, his evolution, is actually discountenancing the all-knowing God, because God can never be wrong. So if you reduce your importance, there's a possibility of somebody else coming to lord it over you, presumably with a superior claim to God, whereas God created you equal. So if you were born in a particular place, it is your duty to preserve and develop that particular place. Therefore, for any Benin descendant that has not identified with the home base and that is not ready to propagate without fear or favor is actually not what is being, because that would be like telling God that God was not wise in creating the person a Benin person. At the time, we did know that the cultural and ethical values of the people was attenuating quite fast, and there was nowhere else we could halt it, at least from further eroding. We now deliberately set up this place as an institutional base for people to have a rethink about where we actually are going and where we are leading our succeeding generations. So this place has very basic 4 objectives, which include history and research, literary documentation, library and archives, and then Edo language development. So it is for this possibility of building for the future that we actually set up the Institute for Benin Studies. And I can tell you it has met our objectives to a large extent. Thousands and thousands of students come here to make research, whether for their first degree or for their master's or doctorate.
Ọba àtọ́pẹ́